There are certain concerns that certain fan bases have going on right now, and I'm wearing a Tampa hat for exactly that reason. Tampa, over their last 11 games, are now 5-6. It's a problem, but I want to cover a couple of things in this video because we've got certain. It's playoff time, and I want to cover a couple of topics in one video. First off, the idea that teams that finish first never win the Stanley Cup. Not true. The most recent was 2013 when the Hawks did it. Of course, that was a strike shortened season. Well, lockout shortened season. 77 points they had that year. Before that, Detroit had it in 2008 with 115 points. Detroit again in 2002 with 116. 2001 it was Colorado with 118. 1999 Dallas had 114. They were first overall. The Rangers in 94 were first overall, 112 points. So it's not this horrible jinx. I really, and I know this is going to sound bad, but I think it's because Washington and Vancouver have won 5 since 2010 between the two of them, isn't it? So isn't it more of a Washington and Vancouver can't win the cup thing than anything else? But we'll find out what happens this year. Now, last year's winners, Pittsburgh, they were second overall in the NHL, but they were 4-4-2 going into the playoffs. The year before, they were fourth in the NHL. They were 8-2 going into the playoffs. Chicago, the year before, were seventh in the NHL, and they were 4-6 going into the playoffs. And this is the last 10 games played by any team that won the Stanley Cup from 1987 until now. Notice the records are all over the place. Some of them were playing really, really well. Looked really solid, really good. I mean, look, you got, I think it was New Jersey was 9-0-1 the one year. There are some of them that were really, really good. And I don't see... New Jersey was 5-0-5. I think that's New Jersey there. They didn't lose one. I know there's one team that didn't lose one in regulation. I think it was Jersey didn't lose in regulation in their last 10. But really, not playing particularly well over your last 10 games doesn't sink you. So that's why I'm not overly worried about Tampa. Tampa's number 2 in their division. Well, if you don't believe that being first in your division or being first overall is a benefit, then that's good. Tampa right now would have home ice against Toronto in the first round, as I'm recording this on April 1st. And in the second round, they'd be on the road in Boston if Boston wins their first round matchup, which right now would be Philly, maybe New Jersey. It's going to be close. It's going to be tough. And this afternoon, Philly showed they can play with Boston. They showed they can beat Boston. So Philly-Boston series doesn't mean that Boston rolls on and moves on to play Tampa in the second round. It doesn't mean that at all. Now, the interesting thing to me with all of these isn't just the regular season. It's the panic in the playoffs. And I wrote down every comeback from 3-0 or 3-1 down. These are the teams that came back from down in the series, and these are the teams that blew that series lead. You can look, you see Detroit over Toronto in 87. I remember that. That was a shocker. Toronto was up 3-1, and they were all ready for the next round, and Detroit came back. And before this, it hadn't been done since 1975, when the New York Islanders came back from 3-0 down against Pittsburgh. Yeah, it was the Islanders came back against Pittsburgh, not the other way around. Washington came back from 3-1 down against Philly in 88. 89, LA came back from 3-1 down against the Oilers. I remember that because the Oilers, remember, were in the middle of their dynasty at this point. Well, the Kings helped to squash their hopes of having 3 Stanley Cups in a row. Because they would have had it in 88, 89, and 90. And of course, 89, that's when Gretzky's against the Kings, or against the Oilers. 1990, the Oilers came back from 3-1 down against Winnipeg. Vancouver victimized them in 92 as well. In 91, St. Louis victimized Detroit that way, and in 92, Detroit did it to Minnesota. Pittsburgh did it in 92 to Washington. And then Pittsburgh did it to Washington in 95. So what you see with Washington now, we're 26 years after that 92 series, and it really hasn't changed. The storyline hasn't changed for Washington in 30 years. You get a lead in a series, or you have home ice, it doesn't matter. But for me with Tampa, I look 2011, I remember them coming back from 3-1 down against Pittsburgh. I cheered pretty big that year. I was really, really, really happy with them winning that. Vancouver came back in 2003 against St. Louis and then blew a 3-1 lead in the next round against Minnesota. So as proud as I was of the Canucks in the first round, I was just as upset with them in the second. Hockey's a very emotional sport. And I get that. And for Vegas fans, you guys are in for a bit of a roller coaster ride. That's why I'm showing you guys the last 10 games of the regular season for teams that win a Stanley Cup. Comebacks from 3-1 or 3-0 down. So you're about to be eliminated, and then you eliminate the other team. You win 3 or 4 in a row to do it. My favorite upsets, 2017, last year, Nashville knocking out Chicago was a favorite of mine. Even though I picked Chicago to go pretty far in the Stanley Cup playoffs. I picked Washington and Chicago in the final. And then 2016, Nashville over Anaheim, which I picked. My first year with this channel being a channel for my hockey, I picked Nashville over Anaheim, and I took a lot of flack for that. A lot of Duck fans are like, wait, no. And I remember Doug McLean. I remember Doug McLean saying, well, Nashville's not going to win this. When's Nashville ever won anything? And then Nashville knocked Anaheim out. There's something to be said for Doug McLean. I would probably take him to Vegas and have him point a machine and wait until he points the machine and goes, this isn't paying out. Sit down. You're going to get the jackpot next time around. LA over San Jose in 2014. Why did I cheer this one? I'm not a Kings fan. No, but it was a 3-0 series. That was a 3-0 series. And that was hilarious. Because, you know, it forced LA to go to 7 games to win it. I thought it might have worn them down. It didn't. 2013, Detroit over Anaheim. The interesting thing is, in 2003, I cheered when Anaheim knocked out Detroit. Which shows that I can definitely, over years that go by, the teams I cheer for are always changing. Other than those top 3, and pretty much the top 4 are set in stone. I can't see a team passing Ottawa on my list of my favorite teams anytime soon. Phoenix over Chicago in 2012. I got a big laugh out of that one. That one was huge. And then suddenly I was like, you know what? Yeah, let's see Phoenix win a Stanley Cup. That would be hilarious. If your team's experiencing a bit of a dive right now, if your team's experiencing some more losses than you might be used to, if they don't look like they're playing particularly well, this was Detroit going into the Stanley Cup playoffs. They had 1 win in their last 10 games. 1 win, 3 losses, 6 ties. They won 1 out of 10. And this was a Detroit team that was known for choking in the playoffs. Once the playoffs rolled around, it's a totally different game. The reason that I still look at Tampa and Nashville and say, you know what, they probably meet in the final, is because over a 7-game series, I really can't see a team shutting down Tampa or Nashville other than Tampa or Nashville. Tampa especially, I have no concern regarding their current record because, yeah, they've had some setbacks, they've had some issues, but they're sitting with 108 points. They're going to finish with 110 plus. That's a pretty darn good regular season. They're a pretty good team. So yeah, there's all the comebacks, my favorite upsets, records teams had going into the playoffs, and this is why if for fans who get upset about things going into the playoffs, I can understand if you're a fan of Washington. And I'm saying that in the kindest manner possible. Washington today got 101 points. They win their division. This should be a really joyous occasion. And yet, until Washington gets out of the second round, nobody's going to be breathing easy in Washington. And that's just reality. But for me, the reality is there are certain teams that perform pretty well in the playoffs when they make it there. And Tampa's one of those teams. Their franchise over its history has been pretty good when they're in the playoffs. They don't always get there, but they're usually pretty good when they're there. So there you go. I hope this has helped fan bases who might be feeling a little bit nervous about the playoffs. And as far as I'm concerned, there are a lot of teams that could win the Stanley Cup this year, and it's going to be one heck of a ride between now and the end of June. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. And thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.